Back alley cat.
No, come on, you can do it, Tornad. I'm fighting him. I'm fighting Soldier. Boys, I'm doing it. I'm living the dream. Boys, I'm living the dream. I'm living the dream.
Yo, hi. I'm new to this whole YouTube thing, and just to start off, I'm gonna tell you what angle I'm coming from. I believe in all that social justice nonsense, and I'm pretty left-leaning. I just want you to know my biases before we even get started. I'm not trying to misrepresent anybody, and I'm really trying to put y'all's arguments in the best light I possibly can, but that doesn't change the fact. I think complaining about historical accuracy in the Battlefield 5 is kind of dumb. I'm that face icon, and this is why women in Battlefield just aren't that big of a deal. Okay, to get started, first, not everyone here is to talk about the women in Battlefield. Some people genuinely have problems with the prosthetic arm and the face paint and uniform choice and things like that. And I would have to just say, I'm not talking to you people, okay? I'm talking specifically to the people that have an issue with there being women in Battlefield. That's it. If it don't apply, let it fly. Now, with that being said, let's move on. Now, coming from this, I would like to believe that this is a very small minority group of voices that are up in arms about something that doesn't really matter, but it's not. A lot of people are really concerned about the historical inaccuracies of Battlefield 5. And from a certain angle, I kind of get it. But understanding the history of the Battlefield games and the context of their gameplay and things like that, these arguments don't really have a leg to stand on. And honestly, I would be lying if I didn't think that a lot of this is a knee-jerk reaction to anything that's perceived as social justice or ultra-political. And it's not like a lot of gamers don't have a justified reason for feeling that way. I mean, their introduction to feminism and social justice is Gamergate and Anita Sarkeesian. Both of which will probably be videos in the future, but let's stay focused, okay?
The trailer, which is supposed to, in theory I suppose, depict a squad of 4 British World War II soldiers, has 2 white guys, a black guy, and a woman, who has a prosthetic arm. Which is absolutely batshit insane. Somebody at DICE had the bright idea that when people were clamoring for a good, immersive, authentic World War II game in the Battlefield franchise, this is what they would give to people. Imagine all of the money and the planning and the time that went into creating this trailer, all the while believing that perhaps people would be a-okay with this and this is just what everybody wanted. And that's not even going into the silly blue face paint and the fact that we have British guys running around with katanas on their backs. So now it seems like 2 years after my most popular video was released about Battlefield 1 and feminism, we have to revisit the topic with the next Battlefield game to release. There's a few different things to talk about, so we'll go over them one by one until we cover all the ridiculousness that we've been shown here. We have to talk about realism and immersion. We have to talk about, well, you know what? Let's do a good old response style video to something that I've been seeing online. All it takes is to go to Google, type in Battlefield 5, and then check the results. Go to all or go to the news, and you'll see exactly what I mean here. You'll get articles like this one from Forbes, written by Paul Tassi. This year, it's Battlefield 5 fighting YouTube trailer dislikes for a change. He writes, sadly, a huge portion of the pushback is that DICE has decided to feature a female soldier front and center in front of the trailer and the cover art for the game. And she has a missing arm to boot, which has led to a very small but very toxic subset of fans lambasting DICE for catering to the social justice crowd. That's right, everybody. A very small subset of fans.
Now back on the Battlefield, I've never viewed this game as that historically accurate. And I know what you're thinking. Are you really talking about the flamethrower tanks? The Renazook, the jumping out of a jet, sniping another jet and take it? Those things aren't a part of the game mechanics. A lot of those things are just people pushing the engine to its max. Those exceptions shouldn't be looked at as the rule. And I get that. I respect that. But at the same time, I'm not just talking about those things. I'm talking about all of it. The fact that your gun doesn't jam. The fact that you can point at somebody and have a red dot appear over their head that you can see through walls. AoE healing, AoE ammo supply, vehicles that heal on their own, being able to parachute 20 feet off the ground out of a building, respawning on teammates. Respawning in general, being able to use any weapon from any faction at any time, C4 buggies, jets, and planes. The fact that you don't die in 1 or 2 shots if you're lucky. The fact that Battlefield 1 had almost no trench warfare. Also in Battlefield 1, the simple fact that we're all not running around with bolt action rifles. But no, it's totally historically accurate to run around with submachine guns and automatic fire in World War I. But like many others, I've heard the argument for this one too. A lot of these changes that I mentioned are because it's a game. These things are for gameplay purposes to make the game more fun, more engaging. You can't have fun worrying about your gun's gonna jam just because you dolphin dived into some mud. And Battlefield works better with more dynamic weapons than just bolt action rifles hiding in the trench. These things are obvious and a lot of them are there just to make the game more fun, and that's okay. But at the same time, I have to ask you, why can't women be one of those things?
If you didn't like the fact that a game that's supposed to be immersive for World War II, or in some ways accurate or realistic about World War II, is so prominently featuring not only a woman, but one with a fucking prosthetic arm with blue face paint on the cover. No. It's because you're angry. It's because you don't like women. And nothing that you say matters because we're just going to call you angry woman hater. And that will solve that. And those from which we should expect the most are the ones who deliver continually the least. Angry Joe, whose channel I've been banned from posting comments on in the past, by the way. Wait, are some of you guys seriously upset that there's a woman in this image? No, Joe. We're upset that there's a woman in the image in a World War II game, because it makes no fucking sense. I haven't watched Angry Joe in a while if this doesn't illustrate exactly why he continually misses the point.
And it's not just the women either. Even in the original Battlefield 1, having a black soldier on any faction, it was met with some criticism from the historical accuracy fanatics. It just feels so weird to me that this is the leg that you want to stand on. This is a thing that's a step too far, the race and gender of a character. But instead of focusing on the things that actually affect gameplay, that can actually affect your immersion, even though cosmetics can also affect your immersion, these things are never complained about. I mean, even when it came to Battlefield 4, you could change the colors of your camoed uniform no matter what map, no matter what faction, and they were all the same. So why is the gender and race thing that big of a deal? Now, with my more biased perspective out of the way, I do want to lock down and really see what are the best arguments against women in Battlefield. And from what I can tell, women in Battlefield are just as consistent as anything else.
This right here. Luke goes on, unfortunately. It's tiring to have to face this year after year, so it's almost not even worth pointing out, like the guy at the bottom there cries, that women served in armed forces across the world during the conflict. Mostly as support personnel, sure, yeah, and there were also examples, in the Soviet Union especially, where they served on the front lines, both on the ground and in the air. Nobody has ever said that no women ever served in any kind of military role in World War II. The argument has never been made, and if it has been, it was almost surely a Poe. Nobody doubts this, nobody contends it. This is perhaps one of the worst arguments you could possibly make against people who say that immersion is being harmed by the prominence of female combatants on the front lines in World War II. Did it technically happen? Yes, nobody is doubting that it technically did happen to some degree.
Number 1. Yes, while women were in World War II and some fought on the front lines, they were extremely rare and only appeared on the Russian front, and as snipers no less. So, can you please tell me why a British female amputee is so prominent in this trailer and on the cover? Okay, to tackle this question head on, first we have to talk about what this trailer actually was. You see, this isn't really all that new in the Battlefield history. And the inspiration for this trailer also stems from my favorite trailers in all of Battlefield, the Battlefield Bad Company 2 multiplayer cinematic trailers. These trailers, just like in the Battlefield 5, follow a multiplayer match in a cinematic setting, showing the teamwork, squad, gameplay features, and blah 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 of what you will see in a multiplayer match. Now, onto the trailer itself, I don't really like the prosthetic arm stuff. I think it's kind of weird and kind of pushes the limit a bit too much. But to be honest with you, I don't even really care about that. But first and foremost, that doesn't change the simple fact that this is a multiplayer cinematic trailer. And yeah, while there are only women on the Russian front, in Battlefield, your faction choice has never played a role in the kind of weapons you can carry, the kind of color your uniform can have. You can walk around on the US side with an AK-47 for God's sake, or use in Battlefield 1 German weapons while fighting on the US side. So why can't the same thing be played for character customization of a woman? If we can establish that women did fight in World War II, they were a thing, and Battlefield developers want to have women in the game, restricting them just to the Russian front or the Russian side of things just seems kind of weird. Like, we can agree, right, that nothing else in Battlefield plays by those rules. If it's in Battlefield, you get to use it on whatever side, or at least a completely and totally equivalency of it. And even if women in the front lines were extremely rare, even on the Russian side, Battlefield has never been a game about averages. Battlefield has always been a game where if we think it's fun, and we think it'll work with our game, let's put it in. You get that with the machine guns in Battlefield 1. The fact that we have tanks at all in Battlefield 1 when they were extremely rare. The fact that Battlefield 1 doesn't focus on trench warfare, even though that was the vast majority of the front. The fact that every soldier in Battlefield 4 isn't walking around with an M16 or whatever faction standard rifle you would have on any faction, both Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 4. Certain weapons and vehicles don't have widespread use, yet they're still in the game because they're fun. So Battlefield's never really held to this standard of historical accuracy. It's never really been that game. And I just find it extremely concerning that this is the angle, this is the thing that we should be up in arms about. Not the gameplay, but this aspect of cosmetic changes. And even if they are just putting women in the game because of some arbitrary reason that they want women, or they want it to sell to more female gamers, what's wrong with that? How is that a bad thing? How is that a negative thing? I understand why gamers feel the way they do about social justice and feminism, and I think in a lot of cases they're pretty justified. But having women in a game isn't inherently a negative thing. I mean, if the goal for the game was to be as historically accurate as possible, I would understand. And I'm sure many of you would tell me there's a lot of people on my side that would still push for representation in that game. But that doesn't necessarily make them right, but that doesn't make us right either. So the only thing that you can really go back to is the intention. And Battlefield has never seemed to have that intention. I've never once played a Battlefield game and thought, wow, I'm super immersed right now. I've never played a Battlefield game and actually related it to real war. Battlefield's just never been that franchise. There's a myriad of historical inaccuracies that people just don't pay attention to.
Do you have a specific way that you want players to see this Battlefield?
Well, I think the best way we can describe it is immersive. I mean, this needs to feel like the most immersive Battlefield that the players have ever played. The most immersive Battlefield that the players have ever played. The most immersive Battlefield that the players have ever played.
Second argument that I come across a lot is that on their panel, on their event, they told us that this was supposed to be the most immersive Battlefield that we've ever seen. And due to that trailer and the small things that I've seen, I just don't see it. And with that I say, I absolutely disagree. This is the most immersive Battlefield you've ever seen. From the complete and total removal of the 3D spotting feature for a less intrusive Rainbow Six Siege spot system, from being able to manually pick up ammo and health, going into a down but not out stage and having your teammates be able to drag you to cover, having anyone capable of applying some sort of first aid but letting the medics just do it better. I mean, when we actually hear about the design choices and the mechanics of the game, Yeah, I can say it's the most immersive Battlefield ever. It's starting to tone down a little bit of the goofy shit that you actually do, not just necessarily what you see. And just me hearing a random female soldier scream in the background or whatever isn't gonna really change my immersion, or lack thereof. And, I like to think that it's people just highlighting the fact that they're rebelling against feminist culture, political views being put into a Battlefield game. And I'd like to think that it's not just sexist, but when I hear one of these guys complaining about women in Battlefield, and trying to listen to them justify how women being in the game is somehow so much less immersive than all the goofy shit you can do, it's just weird. They never actually address the issue. They just say, hey, it's unimmersive. But when it comes to the other aspects of the game, they're completely and totally quiet. That's all for gameplay purposes. It's all for fun.
One of the biggest criticisms of Battlefield 1 is that it isn't realistic. God forbid a Battlefield game set in World War I isn't realistic. I say thank God it's not realistic. That'd be boring as fuck. Thank God I'm not sitting in some godforsaken pit in the middle of no man's land, applying whale oil to my buddy's blistering feet to keep away the trench foot. The real World War I, well, it sounds like it sucked some serious donkey balls. I'm glad that Battlefield has taken a much more, Battlefield-style approach to it. Basically, take Battlefield 4, take out a lot of the good things, and instead substitute it with World War I-looking weapons and skin everything up. A lot of people complain about the fact that the game isn't historically accurate. Everyone's running around with SMGs and shotguns and LMGs, and I understand. I understand how that's an issue that people might have, but come on, everyone knew that this would be a thing. We all knew from the earliest gameplay that we got that there would be shotguns and submachine guns and light machine guns and self-loading rifles and all that good stuff. I'm thank goodness there are, because, I'm a huge fan of bolt-action rifles. I use them all the time in this game, but Lord knows it'd get boring as shit if that was all we had. Different weapons mixes things up, and Lord knows the thing that Battlefield 1 needs is more weapons. That's spawn, though. I'm getting sidetracked. Is the game immersive? Yes, I do think that Battlefield 1 does a fantastic job in immersing you in the world of 19 teens, Europe, France, wherever you are. Things look like they're period specific, and technically, and I use this in the most technical sense of the word technically, but technically all the guns are time period accurate. Yes, we know not everybody had access to automatic trenches. We get it. We understand, okay? Don't tell us this like it's news to us. We understand. It's a game. Things can be unrealistic or have unrealistic aspects to them and still be immersive. Is Battlefield 1 historically realistic? No. Is it historically immersive? I think absolutely it is. DICE did a good job on that. DICE did good. Bravo, DICE. If you want history, go read a book.
And I know a lot of you are really bad about politics being put into a Battlefield game, but I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Politics is a part of everything. Everything that we consume media-wise exists in some sort of cultural context. You can't separate the two. You can only choose to politicize the political aspects are already there, or you can just ignore it. And usually people do ignore it, but they only take offense to it when it's politics that they seem to not agree with. If you try to look at this as somewhat of a vacuum, I see no issue of the Battlefield developers trying to sell to more women, trying to get more women into the franchise. And even if it doesn't work, they're at least trying. Like when you have that quote from that Battlefield dev that was talking about his daughter, and I never want to explain why she couldn't be in the game. I mean, these type of things, with all the other breaches to historical accuracy and authenticity, why does he have to tell his daughter that, sorry, there being a woman in the game is a bit too much for my historical inaccuracy? Like that's kind of hard to say. So honestly, I think the guy's pretty justified. I think it's bullshit to have to explain to, in the example that he gave, your daughter or any woman that you being able to play a female in a game is so much more historically inaccurate than all the other goofy shit that you can do in a game. People don't usually use video games to teach history. I mean, they can, they totally can, but it all depends on the intention of the product, and that's never been Battlefield. And games and media don't always have to be historically accurate. We have a slew of movie and media and shows that aren't historically accurate whatsoever. Yet Battlefield is the hill that we want to stand on. Women is the thing that we want to fight against. It's just very strange. So I hope I addressed all the criticisms when it came to women in Battlefield. I really tried to do this honestly, and non-aggressively as I possibly can. Well, my feelings on this is honestly a hell of a lot stronger. But if I misrepresented any arguments, please let me know. Any critiques or anything like that. Or call me a fucking cuck. Either one's good with me. But until next time, peace.